The lecture hall gleamed like polished silver, curving outward in tiers that floated around a central podium. Blue-white light poured through crystalline panels overhead, reflecting off the translucent scales, chitin, and metallic skin of a dozen alien species. In that immaculate brightness, one figure seemed wrong, too soft, too organic, too human. Eli Vance sat in the lowest tier, hands folded neatly over a datapad he hadn't touched in 30 minutes. Around him, alien cadets whispered in melodic clicks and resonant hums, their voices filtering through the translation field in real time. Humans still use fire, one hissed. Primitive combustion. I read they breathe oxygen without filtration. Another replied, laughter vibrating in multiple tones. How quaint. No wonder they burn their worlds. Eli kept his eyes on the instructor's back. Exwithal's carapace shimmered like oil under the lights, each plate edged with gold. The insected professor's voice was crisp and precise, calibrated for disdain. The purpose of this course, Exwithal declared, his mandibles flexing, is to understand primitive weaponry, not to celebrate it. Civilization transcends caves. The fire stick, the sling, the chemical projectile, all crude artifacts of biological panic. A projection flickered to life behind him, displaying ancient Terran images, muskets, cannons, mushroom clouds. Every human war distilled into a slideshow of shame. The alien stared as if examining a pathogen. Eli's jaw tightened. He didn't move. Exwithal continued. The human species, for instance, embodies an evolutionary paradox. Remarkable adaptability, wasted on destruction. Their earliest tools ignited their atmosphere. More laughter rippled through the hall. It wasn't cruel in intent, it was worse. It was casual. Dismissive. Eli had grown used to that sound over the past 3 months. It was the sound of condescension polished into habit. He finally spoke, his voice steady. We survived those tools, though. The hall fell silent. Even the translation field hesitated, processing the tone. Exwithal turned, his eyes, clusters of mirrored lenses, reflecting Eli like a distorted insect trapped in glass. Cadet Vance, survival is not sophistication. Maybe not, Eli said, but it's the reason we're all sitting here breathing. A few heads turned. An avian cadet with jeweled feathers tilted her head curiously. Exwithal's wings fluttered in irritation. Perhaps, he said coldly, your species' obsession with combustion will make you an ideal volunteer for tomorrow's assignment. He tapped his tablet. The holographic title projected across the dome, Demonstration of Primitive Weapons, Practical Evaluation. Each cadet will recreate a weapon from their species' early technological development. Exwithal explained. Accuracy of historical representation will count for 70%. Effectiveness 30. He paused. His lenses focused on Eli. Do not immolate the facility, human! The hall erupted again in laughter. This time it echoed against the curved walls like mock applause. Eli smiled faintly. Wouldn't dream of it, sir. When class ended, alien cadets filtered out in swirls of color and mechanical limbs. Eli lingered, staring at the empty podium. The air smelled faintly of sterilized ozone and chemical polish, nothing alive. He reached into his jacket pocket and rolled a small metal lighter between his fingers. The dull click of its lid opening broke the silence. A small, orange flame flickered. He watched it for a moment, then closed it and slipped it away. The dormitory corridor was quieter, its light dimmed to mimic evening cycles for species that required rest. Eli passed groups of cadets clustered in conversation, their glances following him. He'd learned to recognize the looks, curiosity, amusement, mild alarm. He entered his room, sterile white walls, a single bed, a viewport showing the roiling blue storms of Verelian Prime below. He sat at the desk, flicked the lighter open again, and stared at the tiny fire dancing in defiance of the Academy's order. His father's voice surfaced in memory. Fire isn't evil, son. It's a question. What will you make of it? Eli turned to the supply kit issued for his assignment. Each student was given a basic fabrication allowance, non-lethal materials only. Most cadets would 3D print decorative relics. Eli's choices were deliberately archaic: a pressurized canister from cleaning stock, and his father's old Zippo from Earth. He grinned softly. "They want primitive," he murmured. "They'll get it." The next morning, the lecture dome buzzed with anticipation. Word had spread: the human was going to make fire again. Eli walked in last, calm, collected, carrying only a small case. The other cadets surrounded gleaming contraptions: gravitic slings, kinetic harpoons, electromagnetic bows, each shimmering with ceremonial elegance. Xythael observed from his podium, mandibles twitching. "Cadet Vance, you are last. Try not to endanger the oxygen balance." Eli set the case on the demonstration platform and opened it. Inside, a Zippo, an aerosol can, and a small inert training drone. The hall went dead quiet. Xythael tilted his head. "You intend to polish it to death? Just showing how humans made war when resources were scarce," Eli said. Some aliens chuckled. Others whispered. The avian cadet from earlier leaned forward, intrigued. "Proceed," Xythael said with theatrical boredom. Eli didn't move yet. He looked around the hall, the sneers, the smirks, the expectation of failure. He'd seen that look on the faces of corporate recruiters who laughed at humanity's first mining colony ships. He'd seen it in the news feeds before Earth joined the Alliance: polite disbelief that something so chaotic could rise among the stars. He took a slow breath. "Where I'm from," he said, voice even, "necessity makes creativity." Then he flicked the lighter. A spark flared, gold in the sterile air. He pressed the aerosol trigger. A jet of fine mist hissed forward, and the flame leapt. The fire bloomed into a roaring cone, washing over the practiced target in a brilliant arc of orange and blue. The metal drone glowed red, then slumped into molten slag. The nearest alien stumbled back, eyes wide. Heat alarms shrieked. Eli released the trigger, shutting the fire off. Silence followed, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal. He exhaled once, calm as ever, and set both items back into the case. "Primitive," he said softly, "but effective." Xythael's mandibles trembled with fury. The room's translation field lagged again, unable to categorize the emotional overload flooding in. The instructor's voice came out thin and strained. "You violated safety." "I followed the parameters," Eli interrupted. "Demonstrate a primitive weapon." "Demonstrated." Laughter didn't come this time. Only stunned breathing. Security drones began descending from the ceiling, sirens pulsing. Eli didn't resist. He simply watched the molten remains of the target, and thought of his father lighting a fire to keep others warm. As the drones closed in, the avian cadet whispered to her seatmate, voice trembling through the translation field. "He made the air itself burn." Eli smiled faintly as they took him away. The flame, even extinguished, still reflected in his eyes. The containment chamber pulsed with amber lights, a silent rhythm of authority. Eli sat on the bench inside, elbows resting on his knees, the smell of burnt alloy still lingering in his clothes. Through the transparent barrier, he could see 2 security drones hovering in silence, faceless, patient, judging. His reflection in the glass looked almost alien under the sterile light. He wasn't sure whether the quiet around him meant danger or deliberation. Either way, he'd already accepted it. The door slid open. Instructor Xythael entered, each movement deliberate. The insectoid's carapace gleamed freshly polished, as if even confrontation had to be immaculate. Behind him came Commander Vesh, a feline species officer whose slit pupils regarded Eli with cool detachment. Xythael's mandibles clicked softly. "Cadet Vance, I should begin by commending your creativity. It takes imagination to turn cleaning solvents into a flame cannon." Eli looked up calm. "You said demonstrate a primitive weapon." "I demonstrated." "You ignited a restricted chemical in a pressurized environment." Vesh cut in, voice sharp. "You could have triggered a hull breach." Eli's tone remained even. "I knew the fire control systems would activate before that." I checked their trigger thresholds during maintenance rotations. They're tuned to react at 50% of combustion danger level. I never exceeded 32. Both aliens paused. For a human, that kind of calculation sounded rehearsed. For them, it sounded unnatural. You memorized the station's safety protocols? XY Thale asked. I read them, Eli said simply. Knowing limits keeps you alive. The instructor paced, chittering quietly. Your species continues to confuse recklessness with intellect. Why destroy a target when simulation suffices? Eli leaned back. Because simulation doesn't remind you what danger feels like. Fear keeps you sharp. Vesh's tail flicked in irritation. That philosophy is why your kind nearly destroyed itself. You turned fear into fuel. Eli met her gaze. And you built an empire that forgot what fear even is. Silence stretched. For a moment, the hum of the ventilation was the only sound. Then XY Thale turned toward the observation window. Several silhouettes were visible on the other side, other instructors, maybe administrators, watching. He clicked a code against his communicator and gestured toward the door. Release him, he ordered flatly. Vesh frowned. Sir? We'll follow procedure. The demonstration was within technical parameters, however ill-advised. Punishment would imply hypocrisy. The Council disapproves of hypocrisy. The containment field dissolved. Eli stood slowly. His movements were deliberate, respectful, but not submissive. Cadet Vance, XY Thale said, return to your quarters. There will be a full review. Tomorrow, report to the Assembly Hall for public debrief. The Academy will decide your future here. Eli nodded. Understood, sir. As he passed, XY Thale's multifaceted eyes reflected him dozens of times. Tell me, human, he murmured, was it worth it? The spectacle? The chaos? Eli's answer was soft. Understanding usually is. Back in the dormitory block, whispers followed him like echoes. The demonstration video had spread. Holofeeds replayed it across student channels, the spark, the roar, the molten drone. Every frame looped with commentary, equal parts fascination and fear. A trio of reptilian cadets stopped him in the corridor. Their scaled armor shimmered in shifting hues. You, one hissed. You nearly scorched half the class. Eli paused. I controlled the burn. You call that control? You played with chaos. Maybe, Eli said, but chaos listens to those who respect it. They didn't answer. Instead, they stepped aside, watching him go. He caught fragments of their whispers. Unstable, dangerous, brilliant. He smiled faintly at the last one. Inside his quarters, he sat by the viewport again. Verelian Prime storms spun endlessly below, glowing blue against the black. The clouds reminded him of the flame's bloom, energy contained inside pressure, beautiful and deadly if unleashed. His terminal beeped. A message from an unknown sender blinked. That was incredible. You made them see us differently. See? He frowned. No signature, no metadata. He closed it, knowing curiosity would cost him focus. Instead, he replayed the moment in his mind, the way the flame had silenced laughter. The expression on XY Thale's face, not fear, but the realization of unpredictability. It wasn't power that unsettled them, it was imagination. The next day, the assembly hall overflowed. Hundreds of cadets filled the seats, some standing along the walls. At the center podium, a holographic replay hovered above the stage. The moment of ignition froze mid-frame, Eli, flame arcing forward, his expression unreadable. Commander Vesh stood beside XY Thale, both flanking a translucent barrier behind which Eli waited. The murmurs were endless until the lights dimmed. Cadets, XY Thale began. Yesterday, humanity reminded us why progress demands oversight. The demonstration before you endangered lives. Yet it also displayed an unsettling trait, creativity through desperation. We convene today to determine whether such traits belong in civilized study. The murmurs grew. Eli watched them, noting every reaction, disgust from the serpentine, amusement from the avian, curiosity from the mechanical. Cadet Vance, Xythael said. You may speak. Eli stepped forward. The spotlight felt cold. I followed your assignment, he began. You said to show a primitive weapon? Humanity's early weapons weren't elegant. They were resourceful. We used what we had because survival didn't give us luxury. A voice from the crowd interrupted. So you burned things to prove intelligence? Eli met the unseen speaker's gaze. No. We burned things because darkness was colder than fear. That drew silence again, longer this time. He continued. You call us reckless, but your kind forgot what it means to adapt. You build perfection into your machines. We build possibility into mistakes. The assembly buzzed, voices overlapping in translation static. Xythael raised a claw, silencing the room. And what lesson do you think your spectacle taught? Eli answered without hesitation. That fire is only dangerous to those who never learn to hold it. A ripple of shock went through the audience. Some cadets stared at him with thinly veiled awe. Others looked at him as though he had confessed to madness. Xythael's wings twitched. You speak of danger as virtue. I speak of awareness, Eli replied. Civilization isn't safety, it's control. Lose the awareness of danger, and you lose respect for the tools that built you. For a heartbeat, the hall was perfectly still. Then Commander Vesh leaned forward, her voice low. Perhaps that's exactly what they fear, Xythael. Awareness. The insectoid turned to her sharply. You sympathize with this chaos? I acknowledge it, she said. There's a difference. The debate among the instructors continued, hushed but heated. Eli stood silently, letting their words wash over him. He'd already said what needed saying. Whether they listened or not was beyond him. When the session adjourned, the crowd broke into fractal conversations. Some argued for his expulsion, others whispered that humanity might not be as primitive as assumed. The fire had done more than melt metal, it had melted certainty. Later, in the empty hall, Xythael approached him once more. His tone had lost its earlier venom, replaced by quiet calculation. Eli looked at the melted training drone still sitting in containment glass. Understanding rarely comes easy. The instructor studied him for a long moment. What drives your kind to such extremes? Eli's voice was almost a whisper. The knowledge that everything worth keeping came from someone who refused to stay safe. Xythael said nothing. When he left, Eli noticed he didn't laugh anymore. Outside, the Academy's artificial night cycle dimmed the corridors. Through the viewport, the endless storms of Verelian Prime flickered with silent lightning. Eli stood there a while, watching the light chase itself through clouds, thinking of how small fire looked, until it spread. News traveled faster than light. Within hours of the demonstration, the footage of Eli's primitive firestorm had spread across the Academy's network and into the greater Alliance channels. Millions watched the human cadet ignite the air with nothing but an aerosol can and a flickering flame. The video was tagged under a single phrase: Unpredictable species. By the third hour, it had been replayed in government briefings. By the 6th, it reached the Galactic Council. By the 12th, every civilization in the Alliance had an opinion. Eli woke to a commotion outside his dorm. The hallway lights strobed red, a security alert. Voices echoed through translation fields, sharp and urgent. He opened his door to find Commander Vesh waiting. Her fur was sleek, her tone measured but taut. You're to come with me. Now. Am I under arrest? Not yet, she replied. But you will want to behave as though you are. They moved through corridors buzzing with activity. Cadets stood aside as Eli passed, whispers following him like smoke. Some looked afraid. Others curious. One or two offered quiet nods of acknowledgement, small, defiant gestures. The lift carried them to the council chamber, a wide, circular room filled with alien officials. Holographic feeds surrounded the central platform, each window showing representatives from across the Alliance. Xythael stood beside the tribunal's dais, visibly agitated. When he saw Eli, His mandibles twitched in restrained irritation. The presiding voice belonged to Counselor Yarvin, a crystalline being whose body refracted light like a prism. "Cadet Eli Vance of Earth," it said, voice echoing through layered harmonics. "You stand before this tribunal for review of your conduct at the Galactic Academy." Eli nodded once. "Understood." A hollow replay began again, the moment of ignition slowed to microscopic detail. The flame expanded, its molecules analyzed by a dozen scanners. The image froze as the drone melted. Counselor Arven turned. "You converted domestic chemicals into a directed plasma burst. This is an act of weaponization, unauthorized by Alliance protocols. Do you dispute this?" "No," Eli said calmly. "I followed the assignment." A murmur swept the chamber. An aquatic delegate gurgled in agitation. "Your people still think violence equals proof. You make toys into explosives." Eli met the delegate's watery glare. "We make solutions. Sometimes they burn." Arven's refracted eyes shimmered. "And do you deny endangering your peers?" "I calculated safe parameters," Eli replied. "Every variable accounted for. The only unpredictable factor was your reaction." That sentence lingered. The room fell still. Ex-Wythale stepped forward. "Counselor, this human has humiliated the institution I represent. His display, though technically compliant, reveals a mentality incompatible with collective safety. I recommend suspension of Earth's Academy privileges." Several voices murmured in agreement. The decision seemed already made. Then Commander Vesh spoke. "With respect, Counselor, if he had truly wished to harm, we wouldn't be discussing this. We'd be evacuating the station." Arven turned toward her. "You defend this chaos?" "I acknowledge results," she said. "His demonstration has drawn attention to something we've ignored: human intuition. Their danger lies not in ignorance, but in understanding risk better than we do." Eli watched the debate unfold like a storm. He didn't need to speak again. The fire was speaking for him now, echoing through their arguments. Finally, the council adjourned for deliberation. He was escorted out to a smaller chamber, left alone with a single guard drone. He sat quietly, head bowed, until the sound of the door opening broke the silence. Ex-Wythale entered, slower this time. His arrogance had thinned into wary calculation. "You may have impressed a few idealists," he said. "But you've also reminded the galaxy why it fears the unknown." Eli raised his eyes. "Then maybe it needed the reminder. Do you think fear earns respect?" "It earns honesty," Eli replied. "No one respects what they underestimate." Ex-Wythale stared at him for a long moment. The insectoid's expression, if it could be called one, shifted subtly. "Your kind frightens me, human. Not because you destroy, but because you create without asking permission," Eli said quietly. "That's how we survived extinction, by not waiting for permission." Ex-Wythale left without another word. Hours passed. When the door finally opened again, Commander Vesh appeared, holding a data pad. Her tone was softer than before. "They didn't expel you." Eli blinked. "That's unexpected. The Council voted to classify your demonstration as a cultural learning incident. You'll remain enrolled under observation. But Earth's Technology Review Board will face inquiry. So they punished the idea, not the act. That's politics." He gave a half-smile. "And the footage? Already viral across 6 systems. They're calling you the Spark. Some see you as proof that humans are dangerous. Others think you've shown something worth studying." Eli leaned back, processing. "The galaxy finally believes us capable of something. Even if it's fear." Vesh's tail flicked thoughtfully. "Fear is a kind of respect, if you survive it." Later that evening, Eli stood on the observation deck overlooking the Academy's hangar bay. Cargo drones glided below, moving in synchronized lines. Beyond the shielded dome, the storms of Verelian Prime raged, massive, electric, beautiful. The avian cadet, Saria, approached quietly. Her feathers reflected the soft blue lights. "You changed something," she said. "I lit a match," he answered. She tilted her head. A small flame, and yet they tremble. Eli smiled faintly. It's not the flame that scares them. It's what it says about the one holding it. Saria looked out at the storm. You could have been expelled. Or worse. Maybe, he said. But humanity's place here isn't built on comfort. It's built on what we can teach them about danger. She studied him for a moment. You don't hate them for mocking you? He shook his head. No. They were right about one thing, we are primitive. We just learned how to make that our strength. A flash of lightning lit the storm below. For a moment, their reflections appeared in the glass. One human, one alien, both staring into the maelstrom. Saria whispered, They'll never see you the same again. Eli's voice was steady. Good. By midnight, the Academy's main feed broadcast a news statement from the Galactic Council. It was diplomatic, sterile, and vague, an acknowledgement of a human cadet's demonstration of creative energy manipulation. But the final line carried weight. In light of the incident, the Council will initiate a reevaluation of human adaptability in tactical and scientific programs. Across the stars, thousands of humans celebrated quietly. A species dismissed as primitive had just forced the galaxy to rewrite its assessment. In the Academy's darkened dorm, Eli sat alone again, watching the endless storm. The light from his Zippo flickered across the metal desk, casting a small circle of warmth against the cold. He turned the flame over in thought. His father once told him, Every fire starts small. What matters is who tends it. Eli closed the lighter, the click echoing through the silent room. Somewhere in the upper decks, Xythale filed his report to the Council, concluding with a single note. Humanity should not be provoked. They create fire from anything. Eli smiled faintly as if hearing it across the void. He didn't want war. He wanted acknowledgement, respect earned the hard way. And in that sterile academy, surrounded by technology older than his planet's oceans, he had given the galaxy a glimpse of what humans truly were. Not monsters. Not primitives. Just dangerous enough to matter. The day of judgment arrived under a pale, simulated dawn. The Academy's central hall had been transformed into a tribunal once again, but the atmosphere was different this time, tense, watchful, almost reverent. No one laughed anymore. The memory of the human's fire still lingered in the air, sharper than ozone. Eli walked between two guards, unrestrained but escorted. The whispering crowd fell silent as he stepped onto the dais. Commander Vesh waited nearby, her expression unreadable. Xythale stood across the chamber, his posture rigid, antennae coiled in contained unease. Above them, the great holographic seal of the Galactic Council of Ethics and Integration shimmered to life. Counselor Arven appeared again, crystalline facets refracting morning light. Cadet Eli Vance, it began. Your demonstration has provoked both admiration and alarm across the Alliance. Today we determine whether humanity's inclusion in the Varelian Academy remains viable. Eli met its prismatic gaze. Understood, Counselor. Do you wish to make a statement before deliberations begin? He nodded once. Yes. The hall hushed. Every sound, every movement vanished. Eli took a breath and stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried weight, a low resonance that drew attention without force. You call what I did dangerous. You're right. But danger isn't the opposite of civilization, it's the foundation of it. Every species here once faced extinction. Every empire started with someone who lit a spark against the dark. He paused, eyes scanning the crowd. Humans didn't invent fire. We just refused to fear it. We learned to use it, to build, to protect, to survive. That's what I showed you. Not destruction, but adaptability. You call it primitive. I call it remembering where we came from. A murmur rippled through the audience. Xythale's mandibles tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Eli continued. If humanity frightens you, it shouldn't be because we're violent. It should be because we see possibility where others see limits. Give us a rock, we'll make a tool. Give us danger, we'll make a plan. That's not chaos. That's evolution. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was the silence of thought. Counselor Arven's crystalline surface dimmed slightly, a gesture of contemplation. Your words carry conviction, human. Yet conviction often births ruin. Eli nodded. So does arrogance, counselor. Fire doesn't destroy because it wants to, it destroys because no one taught it boundaries. The statement lingered, echoing faintly through the chamber. Then, unexpectedly, Commander Vesh spoke. Counselors, she said, voice steady. I was there when this incident occurred. The human did not act recklessly. He acted deliberately. He demonstrated control few cadets here could match under pressure. Perhaps what unsettles us is not his method, but our reflection in it. The council turned toward her. Arven's voice sharpened. You propose admiration for defiance? I propose respect for courage, Vesh countered. He did what none of us dared. He reminded us that safety breeds complacency. A mechanical delegate's voice interjected, metallic and precise. Emotionally compelling, but irrelevant. The human destabilized protocol. Vesh's tail flicked once. And yet the station still stands. A low ripple of amusement spread through the audience, brief, restrained, but undeniable. Even Xythal's antennae twitched in reluctant acknowledgement. Arven turned back to Eli. Human, if the Council allows your species to continue here, what assurance do we have that your unpredictability will not threaten order again? Eli met its gaze without flinching. None. You can't predict what we'll do next. That's what makes us valuable. Every empire in history needed something unpredictable to move forward. Sometimes, progress requires discomfort. For a long moment, the chamber held its breath. Then Arven's form shimmered brighter, the internal prisms refracting in what might have been approval. Then let it be known, it declared, that humanity will remain a participant in the Academy under probationary review. Your adaptability will be observed, not as a threat, but as a case study in applied unpredictability. A wave of noise spread through the crowd, relief from some, disapproval from others. But no one mocked. Not anymore. Xythal stepped forward, his shadow falling across the dais. Cadet Vance, he said, tone clipped but respectful, you've proven something most of us forgot, that knowledge without humility is brittle. Eli gave a small nod. And humility without courage is useless. For the first time, Xythal's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. Perhaps humans are not as primitive as I believed. Or perhaps the rest of us have grown too civilized to remember what survival feels like. Vesh smirked faintly. That's the closest thing to a compliment you'll ever hear from him, Cadet. Eli smiled. I'll take it. After the tribunal dispersed, the Academy returned to a quieter rhythm. The whispers were different now, less derision, more respect. Some cadets even approached him in the halls, curious rather than dismissive. A crystalline being from the engineering sector asked to study combustion principles. A reptilian weapons cadet requested a joint project. Humanity had gone from punchline to paradox. That evening, Eli returned to the observation deck. The storms of Verelian Prime raged far below, their swirling blue light painting his face in shifting hues. Saria joined him again, feathers glinting in the reflection. So they let you stay, she said softly. For now, he answered. Apparently, I'm a case study. She tilted her head. That's how every revolution begins, in observation. Eli chuckled. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. They stood in silence for a moment, watching lightning twist through clouds. Saria spoke again, voice low. When you lit that flame, I thought you were mad. Now I think maybe you reminded us all what beginnings look like. Eli turned the Zippo in his hand. The flame's reflection shimmered against the glass even before he lit it. Beginnings always look like madness, he said. Until they work. He flicked it open. A small flame bloomed, steady and golden, dancing gently in the pressurized air. It's strange, she murmured. Something so small can frighten civilizations. Maybe it's not the flame, he said, but the idea that someone will carry it into the dark. They watched it burn until the metal grew warm in his hand. Then he snapped it shut. The click echoed softly in the silence. Later that night, as the Academy's artificial dusk deepened, Xythale entered his office and dictated his final report to the council. His voice, normally sharp, had softened. Recommendation: maintain human presence. Their unpredictability poses risk, yes, but stagnation is a greater one. The cadets' demonstration, while reckless, has rekindled a crucial lesson: evolution favors those who adapt, not those who perfect. Humanity remains volatile, but perhaps that volatility is exactly what our alliance requires. He paused, then added one final line. Keep the human under observation, but learn from him. He closed the file and glanced toward the distant glow of the planet below. For the first time in years, Xythale felt something alien to him, curiosity mixed with respect. In his quarters, Eli sat alone, lighter in hand, flame flickering faintly. He whispered to the quiet air, "We're not here to be feared. We're here to remind them that fire builds as much as it burns."